Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk about Rust's ownership and borrowing concepts. Okay, so I will go over three different cases to show you three different ways of calling a function in Rust where we give a string input in three different ways and they have three different meanings. Before I move into that, let's talk about Rust's memory model. So in Rust, the values have exactly one owner. You can borrow either through read-only or mutable references to avoid moving ownerships. So this is a general Rust concept. Here in this video, we will see how strings can move or strings can mutate. So let's say in case A, we have the concept of moving, which means the transfer of ownership. Okay, so the ownership might be part of one function or the other, but not multiple at the same time. So in this case, this function is taking a string as input, and strings own heap memory. And when a string is moved, the ownership itself moves. So the original binding can no longer be used. Okay, so if let's say a function calls this take ownership function, then that function loses the ownership of this string, and instead this take ownership becomes the owner of the string. Okay, so as it is written in the comment, we now own s in this function and we can use it freely. If we return it, then the ownership moves back to the caller. Okay, so here this there is this ownership of the string and it is getting changed here. So we are adding this moved substring to it and we are returning it. So in Rust, you don't have to necessarily specify the return keyword. So here in this case, this function is returning. Okay, but if it didn't return, then the caller would have lost access to the ownership of this string. Okay, so this is called the moving of a string variable. Next comes shared or immutable borrow. So we do that by having this ampersand sign. Okay, so here it was just string, here it will be with the ampersand sign. So here what happens is that it is only a read-only access without taking ownership. So the caller still keeps the ownership and we just peek at it. Okay, so in this case, all I'm doing is returning the length of the string. And because this is immutable borrow, we cannot modify the s. Okay, so this is another scenario. The third scenario is the mutable borrow, where we have this ampersand mute string keyword, and that gives exclusive write access without taking ownership. Okay, so this is different than the first one where the ownership actually moved. Here it is not taking the ownership, but it gives a mutable or write access. So while a mutable borrow is active, no other borrows may exist. Okay, so here what we are doing is in this function called shout, we have this ampersand mute as the keyword here, and because we have mutable reference, we can change the original string in place. So we are simply adding this much to the original string. Okay, and I'm going to call all these three functions from this main function. So here, let's say we initialize a variable a string a, which is just hello, and we are printing what it was before, and we are printing what it is after we call the take ownership. So see this take ownership function that added this moved keyword here, right? So if it really took ownership, it should add it while we are printing it. Okay, then I'm also doing this. I'm also creating a variable b, and I'm simply calling the borrow length, and it will be able to print the length of the b. So it basically creates a shared reference. Ownership does not move, and the b is still valid even after the call. So we can still call b after the call. We can still access b after calling this borrow length function. So next comes this mutable borrow. So we have to use this keyword mute here, and we initializing the string called c, and then we call this function shout. Okay, where the mutation actually happens, and we print after shout what it looks like. Okay, so I've already ran the command, so cargo run, and using the name of the file here, and here we can see, so before the move it was just hello, after the move it is hello plus moved. So because the ownership moved, so it was able to do the edit. Similarly, for the second function, we were just calculating its length and we are just printing it. And for the third function, where we are mutating it, so there it was successfully able to add this extra string to the original variable. Okay, so there are like three different concepts we went over. So you can have this type as just the normal type, like the string type we have, or with an ampersand, or with an ampersand mute. Okay, and these three mean different. So the first one is it is transferring the ownership. The second one is just borrow only, and the third one is actually mutating.